Hey guys, so what I'm about to do is I'm going to take you into my world and show you what I do when I go and audit a domain, an email domain. So this client came to me and said, Matt, my emails are apparently landing in my client spam folders. I need help on understanding what I need to do to fix this. So I chose to do this for free for them so that I can record it and pass it on to you. So let's kind of get into it. I'm going to unpack a lot, so stick with me. I don't know if it's going to be lengthy or not. It kind of depends. But let's get into it. So as you can see here, this client is using HighLevel. And for this location, I need to understand exactly what email sending domain that they've got attached to it. So this is the domain. So what I'm going to do is that in order to get a baseline, I need to utilize GPT or Google Postmaster Tools has that first piece. And then, this data is only from a Google perspective, not every mailbox provider's perspective, but at least from a Google standpoint, I can kind of see what's going on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into Google Postmaster, and I've already got the two domains added. And so this is what I would do in your case. Let me go back to the client here. So whenever you start utilizing GPT or Google Postmaster Tools, whatever domain you've got connected to your HighLevel sub-account, start with the root domain. Okay, so we need to grab that and we need to go into Postmaster and we need to add it. So click this plus symbol, go into it and add the root domain first. The reason that you want to do that, and I'm going to just make a new one up just so you can see this. So when I hit next, Google wants you to basically verify that you're actually the owner of the domain, or at least an admin of the domain. So once you get this text record added, then any subdomain that you add to GPT, it will automatically verify because they know that you're at least an admin over that account or that domain. Okay, so just kind of know that. So now that we've got the root domain added, I can add the subdomain that was connected here in their sub account and get some idea of what's going on. So I want to ideally start with the first one. I want to go to the root domain first. So let's take a look at that guy. And I need to get as much history as I can. So I'm going to go and choose last 120. And let's look at the spam rate. All right, so already I know that, man, there could be some significant issues here, right? So Google does not, ideally 0.3% is still too high from a Google spam complaint level. They have changed and updated their email sender guidelines. They're saying now that 0.1% is that threshold that you need to not go over or stay under. So 0.1% is ideally that threshold. And if you look across all inbox providers, there are some that are even lower. So 0.08% is ideally where you want to not go over and stay under. So 0.08 is that golden threshold. So just know that. So that's way down here, right? But you notice all of these huge spikes. So, and this is at the root domain level. If you've got some huge spam spikes, then this is going to correlate to your domain's reputation. So now let's go to domain reputation and let's see what Google says. All right, so we have no data on the domain. Interesting. Let's go and look at some other pieces. Let's go to authentication. The reason I'm looking here is that I just want to make sure that they've got their DKIM in place for the root, SPF record, and DMARC. If you've got all three correctly in order, then the DMARC record is basically all that's going to show in this top line. So you want this set at 100%. The reason that you don't see the other ones is because DMARC is going to layer on top of these other two. So it's like, putting the lid on the security jar. That's basically the best way to look at this. You just want to see that golden line at the very top. Okay, if you do, then you're golden. That's perfect. I'm going to look at some feedback loop information just to see if there's anything. There's nothing. I want to look at delivery errors. We do have some delivery errors. Let's go and look at today's the 28th. So let's look at these data points. So notice though that Google is not showing me anything, which is interesting. Okay, so looks like DMARC policy of the sender domain. All right, so The reason that this is showing up is that whenever they've gone to send an email, the DMARC policy is always extracted from the from display field. I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. But that from domain does not match their DKIM domain. And I'll unpack that with you here in just a moment. But that's why that's happened. So domain alignment could be an issue. And again, this is just focused on the root domain at the moment. Okay, so let's go to the next one, right? So the next one is going to be that subdomain. So let's go there. Okay, so it looks like they've taken care of some issues here, but let's look at if there's anything on these data points. Nothing. Okay, interesting. Okay, let's go to spam rate. And again, this is their subdomain that they've got connected to the sub account. The reason I started with the root domain, guys, is because I need to understand the way that the root domain looks. If it was ruined, tainted in any sort of way, then that can bleed over to any subdomains, and that could be a problem. So I want to understand exactly the way the root domain looks first, and then I'll start stepping into some of the subdomains. It just kind of helps me have a viewpoint across the board. Okay, so these spam spikes aren't too bad. This one, of course, is terrible. Of course, I don't want to see anything above 0.1%, and a lot of these are well over that. But let's continue on. Let's look at IP reputation. IP reputation is going to have a huge impact on your deliverability. So if it's bad, then you're going to have trouble with getting that email to land. Low, your email still will land in the inbox, but a large percentage will continue to be sent to spam. Medium, I'm okay with that. Most of your emails will still go to the inbox. Google is still sort of measuring this and that behind the scenes. But ultimately, we would certainly rather the IP reputation be high. But I'm okay at the moment that it's at medium. I'm not too worried about it. Now let's go and look at the domain health, domain reputation. Okay, so it's at medium. I'm okay with that still. Certainly I would rather that be high, but I'm not too worried about this at the moment. But we can still unpack a few other things. All right. Let's go and look at Inbox IQ. This client does have Inbox IQ. And let's look at what it shows. All right, so I need to reinstall Inbox IQ. They've got the old version, so I'm going to go ahead and install the new one. Okay, so I've got it all installed. Now let's check it out. Okay, so now let's see what we got here. So we're going to see over the past 30 days, 60,000 were successfully sent. Delivered is quite low. Holistic opens are good. And kind of see the email sending frequency and cadence of those. And this is all interactive, just so you know, in case you want to look at something specific. And then each data point gives you a summary, which is awesome. Click rate is super healthy. Everything else looks good. Reply rate. So if there's ever anything that's kind of out of my best practice realm of what I've defined, then it will turn red in color. However, if it's good, it'll be green. And so your reply rate will always typically be red, just because you're not asking for a reply as a call to action with every email that you send out. So this is not negatively impacting you in any sort of way if it's red, so just ignore it. Total deliveries per provider. This is useful because now we can kind of see which inboxes are getting your email. This one is going to be Google is going to show you that is going to be that top one. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go down to the email provider stat box, and it looks like he's got healthy opens. Everything looks good. So let's see. Gmail, others, Hotmail. This is going to be typical of Microsoft. So all of the Hotmails, MSNs, Lives, Outlooks will probably be in the same neighborhood, but let's keep looking into it. Yep, definitely. Apple looks good. Yeah, same thing. Yep. Okay. One thing to note here is that this person is not in a good place to get a dedicated IP, so they're at the mercy of the shared pools of IPs from Mailgun. But the way Mailgun should work is that if the client is showing some really good, positive behavior with their email sending practices, Mailgun will shift them to better and better sending pools of IPs. And with that process, they should eventually land on a good pool to where they can also finally get into Outlook's inbox instead of their junk folder. So Microsoft is always typically looking at that IP health, and they maintain a longer history of that reputation, so they'll always focus on that. And they tend to also focus on entire IP range families. But let's take a look at these two IPs and see what Cisco Talos says. All right, so we've got a good sender reputation. Spam level is critical. The IP family looks good. So what you're looking at here is that we certainly don't want to see any bad IPs. We want to see either neutral, meaning that the reputation is being built, or good is ideally what we want to see. I'm not so worried about critical at the moment, although that can play into some things. And the main thing here is that we're not on any significant block list, although it's not showing the block list. Let's do it again and see if it shows anything. Okay, so something may be wrong with Cisco Talos. Let's go to the other one. I'll show you a different site that you can go to in case you want to look at your health. Okay, so this one, a neutral status, critical spam level, and that IP is listed on a significant block list. Spam cop is going to be a problem child. So if you are listed on that, whether that be an IP or domain level, you're going to have to get it delisted. And so what you can do here is that you'll need to go into Mailgun. So what you'll need to do here is go into Mailgun and create a support ticket and mention that you're listed on Spam Cop. Okay, so that's going to be something that you will definitely need to do for this IP. Now, another site that you can go to is this, multirbl.valley.org, and it's their lookup tool. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to pull out both of these IPs and check them both. So we know one is already listed on Spam Cop. This is going to show us how many were listed on. And so in this case, it's 20, but I'm only interested in just a handful. So I'm just going to scan through this and see if there's any that I don't like. Yeah, all of those are fine. Let's do the other one. The ones that I'm looking for are basically, I'm looking for Spam Cop, I'm looking for Spam Hoss, Barracuda, Cinder Score, which others? Let's see, Proofpoint. Okay, so this one's on Cinder Score, Spam Cop. So this one is a problem child. So it's the .13. Okay, so we know that this IP is causing some problems. So we need to get that rotated. And so that's going to be something that we'll have to send a ticket into Mailgun. Since this person is on a shared pool of IPs, nothing they can do directly aside from sending a support ticket into Mailgun, informing them of what's happening and get them to rotate that IP. Now, if you happen to have a dedicated IP, you can't do that tactic. It'll be up to you to work with the spam bots, or block list, I should say, and get that IP delisted. That'll be up to you to work with them directly. Okay, so we've identified one potential issue. Overall, everything else looks okay. Now, they could be getting a list of some bad email addresses, and that could be what's causing this problem. We want this ideally to be at 90, 97 or 98 or above. Definitely anything lower than that can kind of speak to the audience that you're sending emails to, meaning that those emails are fictitious in nature. They've been fat-fingered potentially. There's definitely something wrong with them. So that will have an impact on your deliverability. But the bounce rate is quite low, so it could be just that maybe the contact database in their HighLevel account is not synced to suppressions in Mailgun. So that could be something. One way in case that is, typically your delivered rate, whatever this is set to, will basically speak to your bounces. And since these are way out of alignment, then there's something else going on. And typically that means that the database in Mailgun is probably the issue, meaning that it's not synced. So what could be done is that we could go into suppressions, make sure that the domain that you're looking for is selected, and then you can export your bounces, your complaints, and your unsubscribes, and basically re-import those into the location. And that way, and make sure that you're appropriately marking them as bounces and set it to D&D in that case. If it's bounces, if it's unsubscribes, it's going to correspond to unsubscribes. If it's spam complaints, then of course that's going to be a spam complaint. So just make sure all of those are tagged correctly inside of your HighLevel database, and to make sure that they go through the proper steps to be listed as D&D. Okay, so next let's dive into the way they're going about to send their emails. All right, so let's go under marketing. And let's look at some of these emails. So I'm gonna, well, let's take a look. Okay, so this is kind of what I'm looking for. So remember the actual domain that they're sending from. So let's go back to domains, and it's going to be this one. So this is the domain that they have connected to that location. But when you go and look at the way that they're going to send the email, they're using a totally different domain to send it. So now what does this do? It creates some mismatch between the two domains. It doesn't have domain alignment. So this is a no-no. This is not something that we want to do, so we want to fix that. One quick way that we can do is that one, you could, if this person's wanting to use this domain, it's going to be advantageous for them to create a subdomain from this root domain and start using that in the from display field. So what I'll do is that I'm going to clone this, and then I'm going to go into it, and I'll show you what that needs to look like with our current setup. So I'm simply going to test it, and what I'll do here is that I'm going to send this from Alex at and I'm going to choose this. This way we're going to have full domain alignment. All right, so the sender name is going to be Alex. I'm just going to make something up. All right, so I'm going to send it to myself. Okay, and this came directly into the inbox. All right, so now we can look at some more stuff. So we know that we're getting alignment across the board. So mailed by is going to be your SPF record. Signed by is always going to be the DKIM. The DKIM is the piece that it's where the reputation is built from. So now we're going to go into show original, and we're going to look at some of these records. So we get a pass across the board. DMARC is there. DKIM gets a pass, and SPF. So all of that looks good. Now let's look at some other things. All right, so I needed to translate it into English so I know what's going on. All right, so it looks like they've got an unsubscribe, although it's very small. I don't recommend doing this. They're trying to hide it. I don't recommend creating this big long space. I just don't like that. I would instead make it apparent, because if someone wants to unsubscribe, we certainly don't want them to mark you as spam in order to do it. We do want to make it easy for them. All right, so just make it easy for them. Make sure it's where they can see it. Make sure it's readable and obvious. That's going to be key. So I don't like this structure. This is something that I see being touted from some email marketers out there, that you should create this big white space to basically discourage someone from clicking that link. The other thing is that the word unsubscribe does not play into your emails landing in spam. None of that. Okay, so that's bogus information. Just don't do that. Just make it obvious. Make sure they can read it, and make sure it's functional. So now let's also go back and look at the headers. So let me move myself out of the way, and let's go back to show original. Let's make sure we got the list unsubscribe in place. You can already tell we do. So what am I looking for? Well, so Google and Yahoo both now have requirements, meaning that there has to be a list unsubscribe and a list unsubscribe post, one click. So we've got the list unsubscribe, which goes to a path. That's what we want. And then also list unsubscribe post, and that list unsubscribe is a one click, meaning that as soon as I click the unsubscribe, then it's done. And so what this means is that even though this email doesn't have it at the top, there will be some other emails. So like if I go to HighLevel, you see this unsubscribe. Google is wanting to make it easy for their users to unsubscribe from your emails. And so if there are proper things baked into the header to make this process easier, then they're going to show this blue unsubscribe link. If it shows that, then it's a good indicator for you. Okay, it truly is. So if you don't have that, then there could be some things that are off. Could mean that you've got some spam issues. Maybe some things aren't quite set correctly inside of the email. You're not doing something correctly if this is not showing. Now, in the beginning, if you do have everything set correctly, everything's obvious from the email copy where people can go and unsubscribe. Everything's baked into the header. Just know that if you've got all of that created and it's fairly new with your setup, just know that blue unsubscribe can take a little bit of time. I've seen where it could take up to about 2 weeks, but from not that Google has pointed it out, but my gut is telling me that if there are issues with your unsubscribe not showing, it can speak to some reputation issues. Something's going on under the hood that Google doesn't necessarily like. So just kind of keep that in mind. That's just me with a gut feel. That's not been mentioned by Google in any sort of way. But this is basically what we're after. And so if I were to click this, then I would be unsubscribed from this list. And we want to make sure it's honored. So just kind of know that. The other thing too is that there have been situations where this is being clicked on that I've seen, and I'm still not unsubscribed from someone's list. So there's still some things that from an automation perspective that aren't quite happening. So it's not a perfect system that Google is doing here, but just make sure that everything works the way it should. So if someone clicks unsubscribe on your emails, make sure that it's done as quickly as possible. Okay, so make sure you honor that. All right, so now let's go back. So we've identified that the list unsubscribe components are there. We want to make some adjustments to the actual copy to make sure that the unsubscribe is obvious. There's not so much white space, just so that we can cut down on some spam complaints if that is the issue. We have identified an IP address that is definitely going to be problematic. What else can we do? Well, we want to look at kind of those links that are being used here. So these links, it looks like they're going to go to this domain. So we want to find out exactly where they're going to make sure those domains are healthy. And so what I would do, let me see if I can manage to do this. Let's go into Google Search Console. Okay, so we want to make sure that Google doesn't have or doesn't show any security warnings for that particular domain. So let's go ahead and get that added. So what I'll do is I'll add a property. And I'm going to go to that property. And sometimes it won't show immediately, but what we can do is that I'll refresh it just one time. We want to make sure that Google hasn't captured some security warnings that they don't like. So we want to make sure that there are no issues detected. Let me move this out of the way. So we want a green check mark there. Now, that domain was sending us where? Let's go back to HighLevel. So let's add this one also. We'll add that as a new property. And let's go to it, and we'll do the same thing. Perfect. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is let's see if maybe their agency tracking link is being used, or if they're using something different. So what I'll do, actually, let me do this. Let me go back to settings. And it looks like I don't see a button or a link for settings, so I'll have to type it in here. I think that's it. Okay, so they don't have a branded domain, so what I like to do here is take advantage of adding one. So I like using brand.whatever domain that they've got connected. So in this case, it's going to be that one, but I'm going to take their root domain, and we're going to get that added. Okay, just making sure that that was the correct domain. All right, so we're going to add this, and what is this? This is going to be attached to that one. We'll add manually, and I'm going to copy this required value field. So the host is going to be brand, and it's a C name. So let's make sure that we get this added as a C name record. I don't think that's already added. Let's search for it. Okay, I don't see it, so let's go ahead and add it. And we won't proxy that. We'll just leave it unproxied. So it's going to be the gray cloud. It'll say DNS only, and let's save it. And Cloudflare is usually pretty quick, so this should verify pretty quickly. Okay. So now the other issue is that sometimes what can contribute to a lower domain reputation is that you may not be utilizing email engagement segments. So a tool that I built for HighLevel is my email engagement system. That system literally took me months to really bake out properly, to really make sure that it could work across the board. There was a lot of time invested in it, and people that are using it have had great success with it. The purpose of it is to basically give you data on people that have engaged with you versus not. So what it's going to do is that it's going to give you an engagement score. It's going to show you people that have opened, clicked, replied. All of those events are going to be stamped with that particular date when that event happened. The other thing is that there is a built-in sunset policy baked into that. So you can change it. So by default, it's going to be set to 90 days. But you can change it to a 30-day policy or whatever makes the most sense for you. So hypothetically speaking, let's say that you want a 30-day policy, and that means that you're sending, an example would be 3 emails a week. and you do that every week. So 3 emails a week is ideal for a 30-day policy, 2 emails a week, 60 days, 1 email a week, 90 days, so on and so forth kind of thing. That's the way that sort of pans out. So on a 30-day sunset policy, if you've been sending 3 emails a week to your audience, that's really plenty of time, plenty of emails for them to have engaged with you from in some manner, right, through email. If on day 31, you've not seen any engagement from that contact, well, then the system is going to sunset them. It's going to mark them with a particular segment, and it's going to set them their contact card to do not disturb for email. So that now when you continue to send your email, that person, that contact is not included. And so over time, that's going to definitely keep your domain health up because your open rates go up and everything stays healthy. So it's signaling to the mailbox provider that you're a good sender, and they know that you're practicing really good list hygiene. The other criteria here, the reason a sunset policy is critical is because let's say that you sent an email to me and I've got a Gmail address. If I marked you as a spam complaint, marked you as a spammer, what's going to happen is that email, I didn't unsubscribe, that email went to my spam folder, right? So I marked you as spam, it's going to send it to spam. So now any additional email that you send out, I'm going to still be included on your list. Even though I marked you as spam, Mailgun, any of these providers are not going to be able to show that I marked you as spam because Google, they don't want people like me to game their system. So they're not going to show that I've marked you as spam. They're just not going to do that. Now, there have been times in the past and with some systems where I can see some Gmail contacts. So that it is possible that they get sent out. But for the most part, you're not going to see it. And so what that means for you is that whenever you go to send an email, that person is still on your list. They've not been sunsetted. That email is going to go to their spam folder. And let's say that you've got a list of folks that have marked you as spam. Well, those emails are going to continue to go to spam. And guess what? They're not going to have any engagement. It's going to the spam folder. You're not going to have any opens. You're certainly not going to have any clicks, and you're certainly not going to have any replies. So what was that telling the mailbox provider? Well, it's sending a bad signal. So a way to sort of be able to figure out that that's happening is through my email engagement system. You're going to be able to pinpoint them, and they're going to be naturally sunsetted over time. So that's really another key component to this, that's something that people don't really talk about, but that does happen. And so that's a real live use case for that system. So I don't know if this person has it, but let's find out. So the way that I built it, it's a linear set of workflows that just are constantly watching. And so let's see if it's in here. And again, I don't know which one is automation, so I'm going to have to put it in up here. All right, so what we're going to do here, we're going to look for engage. And they don't have the email engagement system. Okay, that's fine. You can go about this in a manual sort of way with HighLevel. So let's go back to their contacts. And basically what we want to do is start looking for people that have engaged with us in some fashion. I don't think that I can use any of the filters. Here we go. Obvious. All right, let's type an email. And let's look at both. So we're going to do last open date. And I don't know, let's just do a range. Let's say less than 61 days ago. And D&D is not enabled for email. Okay, so that'll be one criteria. The second criteria is that we want to look for click dates. Okay, so we want to look at less than 60 days ago or 61 days ago. And do not disturb is not enabled for email. Okay, so now that gives us a list of 4,000 people over the course of 60 days. So I'm not privy to how often this person is sending an email, but this right here kind of gives us a sense of who might be engaging, and this could be kind of a starting point to sort of bake that in manually. This could be a segment based upon, so what I would do here is that I would say save this list as a 60-day engaged list. And now these are just simply segmented based upon an engagement time. You can create a 30-day list if you wanted to. You go higher or lower depending on kind of your needs, but that could be a place to start. And so the advantage here is that if you're segmenting based upon that, is that you can use that strategy to send email to these contacts. If they've shown some engagement in the past, hopefully they will continue that. And the purpose here is that we want to send more email to our engaged list versus not. That's really what that amounts to. So the more positive behavior that we have with their email sends, the greater that our domain reputation is going to be lifted and stay at a high state. And that's basically what we're after. So that could be a manual way of achieving it, but there's no built-in sunset policy. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, what I'm going to do next is that I've got enough information to basically come up with a strategy, which is what I just provided you. I'm going to send this to the customer so that they are aware of what they need to do. So what were the key components? Number one, we've identified an IP address that was listed on both SpamCop and SenderScore. Okay, so that's going to require an email to be sent to Mailgun, and hopefully that IP can be rotated out of this person's account. Okay. Number two is that they're not practicing domain alignment. Okay, so they need to make sure that they are sending their email from the actual subdomain that they've got connected to their HighLevel location. Now, if the domain that they're using or have been using in their from display field, if they want to use some version of that, then that's going to require them to basically create a new domain inside of Mailgun. And then since that is a new subdomain with a new DKIM key, then they're going to have to go through an entire warm-up process to get that in the good graces of the email world. And so they may not want to necessarily do that. So instead, it's going to be better for them just to stick to whatever subdomain they've got, because overall, the health isn't too bad. I think they can certainly recover from it. And then with that process, naturally, they're going to be hopefully shifted to better pools of IPs. Mailgun should see that, and they should at that point be in the good graces of landing in the inbox with Microsoft accounts. So that's kind of the process and kind of the plan. So not too bad. So that was kind of quick, under 45 minutes. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of what to do in your own world and kind of what needs to be done. Just kind of keep those things in mind. List hygiene is certainly important. That is a game changer for so many people for the reasons I mentioned. And then, of course, domain alignment. Everything else looked good. There's no sense in me kind of digging into what their DMARC policy looks like at this time. So that's where I'm going to leave it. So if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out.